In what is another horror story of post-Roe America, a woman in Louisiana is being forced to choose between carrying a fetus that will not survive or traveling throughout several states to get a legal abortion. So now this is Nancy Davis, a woman who lives in Louisiana, who is 13 weeks pregnant. But the fetus, unfortunately, has a rare condition called acrania. Basically, the fetus lacks a skull and the top of its head. In her last ultrasound, Ms. Davis was told that the fetus was not going to survive. It is non-viable. So now she has a choice. Does she carry and deliver a child that's not going to survive, or go out of her way, spend a lot of money and resources and time traveling to Florida to get an abortion? And that is, of course, if she actually can make it there in time, as Governor Ron DeSantis just signed a 15-week abortion ban. So now look, I mentioned Louisiana, right? Louisiana is one of the most poorest states in the country. Poorest states. So I don't know if she has the resources to be able to travel that far. And of course, to endure the waiting period. So of course you have to go not only travel expenses, but hotel rooms, food, eating, things like that. And not to mention the cost of the actual abortion. That's what she's forced to do, to make that choice. Now, Davis spoke to local news station WAFB9 on Monday. And, I'm not going to, okay. This quote is powerful, okay? She said this: "It's hard knowing that I'm carrying it to bury it." I can imagine that this was probably a wanted child. And to find out that there is this rare condition that is going to make that child die pretty much after it is born is horrifying. And yet she is supposed to make this choice. Do I carry it for the full term, knowing that this thing that's inside of me is not going to survive? Or, again, having to spend all this resources to go and get an abortion somewhere else. Now, her state, as I mentioned, Louisiana, had banned abortion following the end of Roe, as many other states did. And while Louisiana's ban does include an exception for some fetal conditions, acrania isn't one of them. It just it slipped the cracks. Now, look, this isn't pro-life. Obviously, this ban, not about being pro-life. It's not about trying to save the fetus. It can't be saved. There's no skull. It's horrifying. What they're doing in Louisiana is prolonging the misery for this pregnant person for literally no reason at all. But understand, these abortion bans, that's the point. The cruelty and the misery is the point. And I give you an example here of a case before Davis. And I talked about this before. One Louisiana doctor testified in an affidavit challenging that very same ban, that her patient was forced to endure a painful hours-long labor and delivery of a non-viable fetus, despite her wishes and best medical advice. The doctor, Valerie Williams, said her patient was, quote, screaming not from pain, but from the emotional trauma she was experiencing. It took hours for the woman's placenta to deliver, causing her to hemorrhage about a liter of blood, which placed her own life in danger. A simple abortion procedure would have lasted 15 minutes. So, look, that's what's going on in these states. She claimed that this was the first time in my 15-year career that I could not give the patient the care that they needed. And you know why? It's because of big government. And I thought conservatives were supposed to hate big government. No, they love it. They love it in these cases. And I'm talking about Republican politicians that vote in favor of these bans despite not knowing what they're talking about at all. Look, the state threatens doctors and abortion providers who violate this ban with about 10 to 15 years in prison. Louisiana doctors have talked to Jezebel and said the ban had forced them to fear that they could go to prison for just handling a miscarriage, as they have always had. The patient, as I said, could have died. And in Davis's case, she is still literally, being forced to carry a fetus that's missing most of its head. There's no pro-life in this. There's no life to protect here. It's already gone. But understand that, this is why politicians absolutely have no business in dictating these kinds of laws. They have no idea what they're doing, no idea what they're talking about, or maybe if they do, they don't care. They don't care about this life. And in fact, in passing these laws that are very murky, well, they're actually putting more pregnant people in danger. Doctors have previously pointed out, according to the article, that exceptions for threats to the pregnant person's life are too ambiguous to actually help pregnant people. How close to death must a patient be? An attorney for Louisiana's abortion providers asked last month. Doctors are unsure what counts as a medically futile pregnancy. Further, in some countries, being forced to carry a dead fetus has resulted in pregnant people developing fatal infections when doctors are too afraid of criminal charges to help. Well, I mean, that's what's going on. And even before the end of Roe, it's already been talked about and widely known that the U.S. already has the lead in maternal mortality. But we're number one, particularly among, of course, people of color. No, the right wing in this country, right wing politicians have had plenty of chances to be pro-life, to actually, show that they care about American families. They could have done that by supporting efforts to get universal health care, something that their own supporters even support. And how about anti-poverty programs that are effective at helping children, keeping children fed, family planning services that prevent unwanted pregnancies, and again, just food for children overall. But of course, in every single circumstance, they choose not to, because it's not about being pro-family. It's not about being pro-life. At the end of the day, it's always about control, and it always has been.